Just a minute. Yes, we are back. We are back with the 16th session. The 16th session of Global Communication Education Conclave that's being organized across 75 evenings by Global Media Education Council, a council which is headed as president by Professor K.G. Suresh. I'm Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, the secretary, and 9 vice presidents from 7 nations of the world so far, and the number is growing. And a team of almost 50 young professors, including the lady who is the leader of today, have taken upon themselves the task of organizing this program across 75 evenings. A humongous task, but nevertheless worth doing. Going by the content so far, it has been a fabulous journey, I must say. And today, I'm sure would be no difference, because we have some of the stalwarts, and we'll meet them soon, both ladies and gentlemen, speaking to us today. This whole conclave and its first mega conference, this whole council and its first mega conclave are focused on, one, the 75 years of India's independence, the context, though the themes can be anything and everything to do with media and communication. We'll know about the theme more from the leader of the day. Each day is led by the leader, but me, as someone from the core committee of GMAC, it's my duty to introduce the leader, and we are very happy. Out of the 75 evenings, most of the evenings are led by lady professors, lady academics, and today is no difference. We have Ms. Ghazala Yasmin, the assistant professor and former head of Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Alia University, Kolkata, as the leader today. And she is someone I know for a long, long time, from a time when she was an extraordinary student of Patna Women's College, followed by a brief stint in Symbiosis Media School, then another extraordinary stint in graduation, post-graduation from Jamia Millia University. Beyond that, I must also mention that she has been doing certain fabulous tasks, like she's on the board of Curriculum Advisory Committee of BBC Young Reporter Program. There's something that one should be proud of, and indeed a major impact that you can create through that. She's a resource person in the National Resource Center of UGC HRDC Jamia Millia Islamia University's cell. She's also an alumnus of International Visitors Leadership Program on Education and Activism for Young Women, sponsored by the US Department of State. IVLP program is very well known across the world. She's a fellow of the All Women's International Delegation as well, that had hosted by the Consulate of People's Republic of China. She's a Google certified trainer, very important for fact checking and debunking what we often call as fake news, but we really know that if it is news, it cannot be fake, and if it is fake, it cannot be news. So debunking the false content. She is empaneled with the Ministry of Information and Cultural Affairs, Government of West Bengal. She has worked as a senior sub-editor with a travel magazine and has been writing in several publications and working on several documentaries. I'm not going into a detailed talk on that. But the fact of the point is that these lady leaders, and some of them are men as well, who have been leading each day, have worked for almost 2 to 3 weeks to bring this evening, one evening, the 120 minutes that you'll have together, put it together. And today, as we'll find throughout the evening, toward the next 120 minutes, some fabulous scholars, not just from India, but also from outside India, are here, both in the panel and in the audience. Just now, I welcomed the former Chief Information Commissioner of Bangladesh and the editor of Ajker Potrika, the 3rd largest newspaper, Dr. Ghulam Rahman, just now in the audience. And it's a pleasure to also welcome in the audience, just a minute, I will tell the name, from Afghanistan, our friend from Afghanistan who has joined, Mr. Mujib Rahman Siddiqui, I suppose. And there are several others who would be there in the audience, both in the YouTube and in the live audience in the Zoom. Without taking any more time, I welcome Ghazala ma'am to start the session as the leader of the evening. And indeed, we are grateful to you for bringing forth such a powerful panel that we shall be having over the next 120 minutes. Over to you, Ms. Ghazala Yasmin.
Thank you so much, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary. It's such a pleasure and an honor for me to be introduced by you on this extraordinary and a historical platform that has been created by you. It's your baby. And of course, Professor KG Suresh, who heads it as the president. Welcome all of you, the esteemed dignitaries who are there on the panel, to the Global Media Education Conclave. And today we are on the 16th day seminar, a webinar on the Global Education Communication Conclave. At the foremost, I will like to welcome all the esteemed speakers, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah, who's the chief guest for the evening. So we are really obliged to have you with us, and it would be a really valuable value addition for us to be able to listen to you. Professor Dr. Tapati Basu, I mean, she needs no introduction, a doyen in media education in the eastern part of India. Her name is synonymous to mass communication in the speaking circles, at least in West Bengal. We also have Dr. Sadia Jamil with us. She will be our keynote speaker with us, a very young, erudite, dynamic academician who's made an international mark for us. She's chairing the Journalism Education Research Center at IAMCR. And of course, she's working at a university in Abu Dhabi. She's our keynote speaker for the day. And well, my heartiest welcome to one of the greatest caring minds, and of course, an equally dynamic personality that I know when it comes to working for rights. And that is Miss Sucharita Bardhan. Sucharita, we're very honored. She was working in Jaipur for a long, long time with a stint in Jaipur, Rajasthan, but now she's back with us. And Calcutta is really privileged to have you back, Sucharita, so you can make a difference in the lives of a lot of marginalized people, be it women and children. So coming to the topic of our seminar today, and that is media and the marginalized. Just a brief background as to how we decided on this particular theme. Well, in this age of round-the-clock coverage of political and non-political debates, it is worth taking a moment to consider how the marginalized sections of society and their struggles are depicted in the media. Well, in a different generation, Gayatri Spivak has already raised the question, can the subaltern speak? And the Academy was really shaken up into recognizing that it cannot assume that it can represent the voice of the marginalized. And herein comes in the question of media. Well, the international media, mainstream media today, actively tries to pursue subaltern voices, at least that is what it claims. And in doing so, it kind of creates a two-way interaction. First is that the journalists seek to incorporate the marginalized in their rush to find news. But how fair is that? How justified is that? Well, that is up to our esteemed panels to deliberate on. And the second point that I want to raise is the fact that the subaltern also speak new opportunities offered by mediation to voice their opinion. The term subaltern was previously used by Antonio Gramsci in his prison notebooks, but later on it was used as a term which was an umbrella broad spectrum term to describe marginalized people. And today, when globalization and neoliberalization is omnipresent, there are many subaltern sections which still remain excluded from the debates of most of the newsrooms. So on that note, Sadia, I would like to invite you to please ponder upon, deliberate upon. But before doing that, let me just introduce once again Ms. Sucharita Bardhan, Communication Specialist, UNICEF, who is the chair for this evening. So with the permission of the chair, I would like Sadia to begin her deliberation. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ghazala. Thank you, Ghazala. Thank you, the session chair. So good morning, good evening, if anyone is joining us from the Global North, and definitely good evening for rest of the people who are joining from the Global South. Greetings on behalf of IAMCR Journalism Research and Education Section. It is really a privilege and honor for IAMCR to be partner for this historic conclave, which is being hosted by GMEC. To be very honest, I am hugely inspired by the initiative. So congratulations to the entire GMEC team, the executive board, for organizing this conclave. I'm very privileged to be part of this conclave today with a keynote speech on media and marginalized, something which is quite broad in the spectrum. So when we talk about media as an institution, it is something which is underpinned by actors. So who are the actors? We do have journalists, media professionals, citizen journalists, bloggers, technological actors who are programmers, who are working as a digital journalism, news ecology actors. So other than actors, we have to look into agency that describe the actual marginalization caused by the media. So when we think about the issue of media and marginalization, it is something bifold, in my opinion. Marginalization can be occurred with the actors who uphold media as an institution. And at the same time, it can be caused by those actors. So before I touch upon the focused presentation today, let me explain a little bit how this marginalization operate within the context of news media ecologies across the globe. Journalists as an actor within journalistic institution can be part of this marginalization because of their ethnicity, religion, caste, or simply because of their gender. At the same time, they can be the cause of marginalizing communities because they are the constructor of reality. And being the constructor of reality, they can be the catalyst who trigger marginalization in broader societal perspective. But today, I'm not going to talk about how journalists as active actors or passive actors cause communities to be marginalized in any society. Rather, I prefer to focus on how journalists, being active or passive actors, can be marginalized within their own respective news media ecology. So having said that, as I said, that marginalization can be occurred on the basis of caste, ethnicity, religion, but it can be massively happen because of the gender. And this is something which is an ongoing contemporary research issue when we call gendered journalistic practice. It indicates how journalists are marginalized because of their gender. And being a woman, I feel that it is something very pertinent to talk about how women journalists are marginalized within news media ecologies, and regardless of the cultural context within which they operate. So starting with the presentation that women in news media, why their safety, rights, and representation matter. This question is something which is broadly linked with the marginalization of women journalists. And as I said, across the globe, there is no cultural differences when we address about the issue of women journalist safety, rights, and representation. There might be some variation based on the differences of global north and global south, definitely, but this is something, a pertinent issue that has triggered research and dialogue into gendered journalistic practices and to have a gender sensitive approach while addressing issues of women journalists. So when we say that women in news media, their safety, their rights, and their representation matters. Why? Because we want to make sure that men and women, they have equal representation, they have equal rights, and as well as an equally safe environment. So there is no prevalent discrimination that can cause marginalization of any submissive gender. So the issue of safety, rights, and representation for women journalists matters to ensure that they are not marginalized. So this is something that we need to address, because in countries like South Asia, in regions like South Asia, which are characterized, pardon me if you find it a wrong observation, they are characterized by news ecologies which are dominant by male journalists. And henceforth, the research into women rights, women safety, women representation, and news media ecologies become more triggered and more intriguing to see how they are actually marginalized. So something that I would like to look into deeper. Why specifically to talk about a female journalist safety? If safety is not something which is important for a male journalist, definitely yes. We have seen that South Asia has been constantly prone to conflict. It's a conflict sensitive region. Journalists who are engaged in reporting on conflict and war, particularly in regions like Afghanistan, Iraq, and Middle East, they are constantly prone to physical risk, and which ultimately result in psychological risk. But why to emphasize on the safety of female journalists? Because if a woman journalist, if she's a war correspondent, if she's reporting on conflict, she is more prone to physical risk by virtue of her gender. So having said that, we don't mean that we undermine women journalists because of their gender, but it is something the sensitivity of the safety risks trigger, it enhances because of their gender. So when we emphasize that we want to ensure a safe working environment for female journalists, it means that we want to facilitate their participation in journalistic ecology, at least equally to male journalists. Now, in countries like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and in Nepal, we see that most of the journalists who report on conflict and war, they are male journalists. And most of the female reporters, they are not assigned to report on conflict and war simply because they are considered as someone who cannot cope with the violence, who cannot cope with the safety hazard involved in these kind of reportings. So ensuring a safe environment, facilitating their pitch into war zone or conflict areas means that we are giving them a space to have equal representation in covering sensitive issues or conflict issues in conflict sensitive areas. I'm sure if you look at dynamics of female journalists back to India, they are not too much into conflict or war zone reporting. It is being dominated by male journalists. And definitely, I'm sure like recently we have worked together with UNESCO South Asia's cluster office in New Delhi, who have been very active to promote conflict sensitive reporting and the representation of men and women journalists equally to take part in reporting into conflict zone and conflict areas of South Asia. So these kind of initiatives help women journalists to at least ensure their representation, that they are part of a news media ecology, they are not marginalized. Now, in many of the UNESCO sessions, we emphasize specific and specialized training sessions for male journalists and female journalists from a gender-sensitive approach, so that we train women journalists how they can take part in conflict areas or war zones, ensuring their safety and ensuring that they are also part of these sensitive beat areas. So ensuring and emphasizing safety of female journalists is one way to ensure that they are not marginalized. But it is not certainly the part of female journalist safety. There are so many other issues that does affect their marginalization, that does affect their professional development. And one of the very pertinent issue is about gender discrimination. Now, gender discrimination is something which is common in the global north as well as global south, but it does vary because of the cultural or religious variation of different countries. Now, if you look at the specific case of South Asia, we can see that female journalists, they are more discriminated in terms of their recruitment, their promotion, their pay scale. However, we must acknowledge that in recent years, there has been a tremendous increase of female journalists across South Asia. You can see that more and more female journalists, they are entering into journalistic profession, regardless of the challenges they might confront. But still the issue of discrimination in recruitment, in pay scale, in promotions does exist. And we need to address that to make sure that women are not marginalized, to make sure that their professional growth is not affected by gender disparity in different aspects. Another issue is about the digital risk. As I said, that journalists are prone to physical and psychological risk, regardless of their gender. Male and female journalists, they both encounter offline safety risk. But having said that, we are surviving in a digital ecology. Female journalists, they are more prone to digital risk of sexual harassment, online trolling, and online threats. And that is something that goes under the carpet. At times, they are not able to report back effectively, even to their media organizations or to their colleagues, that what sort of sexual harassment, online trolling, and what kind of specific threats they are facing through social media and other digital platforms. Though with the heralding of Me Too movement across the globe, we have seen that quite many women journalists are courageous enough to report back what exactly they face in the online world, in online sphere. But still, we must acknowledge the cultural context of South Asia, where women journalists, they are not simply able to speak up what exactly they face in terms of digital risk. So this is something that needs a deeper investigation to make sure that women journalists, they are not leaving behind because of any sort of online and offline safety risk. And then I put sexual harassment in a separate box. Now, why? Is sexual harassment not a safety risk? It is. But why we need to address sexual harassment of women journalists separately? Now, let me tell you that we have been currently running a research project that looks into the concept of sexual harassment in different countries of the world. Sexual harassment has journal definition that has been defined by United Nations. We have generic definitions that have been defined by UNESCO. But at the same time, the preliminary findings of our research project back to Latin America and South Asian countries indicate that sexual harassment is a concept that is relative. It is subjected to the cultural or the context within which a female journalist operates. Now, for example, if a female journalist operating back to Pakistan and if somebody operating back to India, it's something very interesting how women journalists conceptualize and perceive sexual harassment that might be different. And this is the ground or the underpinning of my current research project to gauge how female journalists perceive or conceptualize sexual harassment, how it affects their professional and personal lives. It helps us to understand the way they can be marginalized because of sexual harassment. Now, I can share briefly some of the key findings from Latin America or South Asian countries like Pakistan, that sexual harassment is something which can be conceptualized in very, very funny ways, even within the same country. For example, if somebody is operating in an English language news media, they might have different understanding of sexual harassment than somebody working in an Urdu language news media. Similarly, if you go back to Latin America, they have these kind of variations in the conceptions of sexual harassment, the way they perceive. The language does define the language of media, the orientation of media. Some media organizations, they are rightist, some are leftist in their orientation. These kind of variation may persist within the same countries, and we need to minutely address how female journalists conceptualize and pervade sexual harassment to understand exactly how it affects their professional development. Because we cannot apply a universal definition of sexual harassment. We do have documents from United Nations that we use as an underpinning of a conceptual framework of our research project, but based on the grounded theory approach, we encourage to build a framework that does take into account contextual and cultural differences. This is how we understand exactly how women journalists are marginalized. And then we need to take into account the broader societal and cultural context. When we talk about South Asia, it looks like something quite similar, but trust me, even within South Asia, countries like India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Maldives, Bhutan, they all have different societal texture. They may have similarities. They may share some cultural or contextual common underpinnings, but they do have different cultural intricacies that we need to gauge. For example, a woman journalist operating back to North India, she might have a different level of pressure. She might have a different experience, the one who is operating in South India. Similarly, female journalists operating in Pakistan, 4 different provinces, they might have different experiences based on their ethnic, cultural, or tribal background. So we need to look into cultural intricacies. We need to look into these variables, how it marginalizes women journalists. So the marginalization of women in media, it is triggered by several factors. As I mentioned in this PowerPoint slide, it may be triggered by gender discrimination within news media. It may be triggered by offline and online safety risk. It may be triggered by the prevailing sexual harassment at different levels, and it may be triggered by the broader societal and contextual factors. Another important aspect that we need to take into consideration regarding the marginalization of women in news media ecology is the emerging challenge of gender disinformation. Now, very recently, there has been growth into research that talks about gender disinformation that does impact women politicians and women journalists. Earlier, we used to talk about the stereotypes that does affect female journalist representation, their identity, their self-esteem, their dignity within news media. But now it has been more focused with gender disinformation. So what exactly gender disinformation is? Gender disinformation directly or indirectly does affect the reputation, the image, self-esteem, dignity of a woman politician or a woman journalist. So in one sense, it is a subtle, indirect, or at times in aggressive context, a direct attempt to malign the identity of a woman. And I should rather say the professional identity of a woman journalist. For example, if you claim woman journalist, she's corrupt, she's involved in sexual affairs, and she is not professional, she is simply not competent enough in her profession, in professional duties, these kind of disinformation impacts on the professional development of a woman journalist, and that ultimately impacts on the marginalization of women journalists. So what we need to do is we need to ensure that this kind of disinformation does not affect female journalists, but at the same time, I emphasize it does not affect even male journalists, because male journalists, they can also be a victim of disinformation. So this is not something which is specific to gender, given I'm focusing right now on female journalists, how they are marginalized, but trust me, gender disinformation can impact male journalists equally. Now, you might have thousands of examples in your respective countries, the way journalists are blamed being corrupt, being involved in sexual affairs, being involved in different kind of malign activities, and at the same time, questions on their professional credibility and competency. It does impact male and female journalists equally. But given that female journalists, we need to encourage more to get them involved in broader news media ecology. We need to ensure that this kind of gender disinformation does not harm their professional development. So having said that we know that the issue of safety, the issue of rights, the issue of gender disinformation does impact the professional development of female journalists. It does impact their, it does define their marginalization within any media institution. What we can do exactly to address these issues? So the first approach is to have a multi-stakeholder approach, which is definitely comes originally from UNESCO and United Nations, who constantly emphasize to involve different stakeholders to address pertinent issues. And when we say to have multi-stakeholder approach, that means to involve national governments, media organizations, journalist unions, civil society members, all together at one platform to address these issues. And then we need to have concentrated efforts to develop a legal framework to address the issue of female journalist safety, their gender disinformation, and gender disparity. I'm sure across South Asia, all countries have different kind of legal instruments to ensure workplace harassment, to ensure online and offline safety of female journalists. But what we need is to ensure effective implementation of these laws. Another important aspect is to encourage women journalists to underline their issues. This is one of the issues that I always face in my research project, is to encourage women journalists to speak up their experiences with honesty. Not all the time do female journalists, they are ready to take part, to talk about their experiences of sexual harassment and the way they experience different kind of safety risk online and offline. And this is one thing that we really need to encourage, that women journalists, they come up and they ensure that their voice is being heard. And finally, given that I'm one of the people who advocate for research in every aspect of media and communication, I encourage people to please look into deeper aspect, develop new conceptual, innovative, theoretical framework that we do need to address pertinent issues. I'm grateful to all of you for bearing me, and I hope that this is something insightful, and I'm very looking forward to our next speakers to enlighten with their deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadia Jamil. In fact, a very enlightening discussion, a very erudite presentation on what exactly is the crux of, the representation, the, quote unquote misrepresentation, and the gender disinformation, which you rightly followed out, which is not just faced by women journalists, but, kind of certain stereotypes which kind of, try to marginalize both male and female journalists in their workspaces. And of course, some wonderful solutions also offered by you, through your academic discourse as to how this problem can be sorted out. So thank you so much. We're indeed very enlightened, and I think it was a brilliant start to today's conclave. To brief you all a little more about Sadia, well, she has a PhD in journalism from the University of Queensland, Australia. She's also done her Masters of Science in Media Management from University of Stirling, Scotland. And right now she is the International Chair for Journalism Research and Education section at the International Council of IAMCR. She sits on various international journals in areas of journalism, digital media, political communication, and media practices of the Middle East. And she's also serving as the Honorary Advisor of Media Action Nepal. So it was really wonderful having you here, Sadia. Thank you for your precious time. You're in a different time zone, but still you've managed to take out time for us. We are really indebted to you for that.
Thank you, Ghazala. Thank you.
Thank you. And now let us move forward, and now let us come to somebody, and this is the highlight of the conclave today. I'm really very honored. I feel extremely honored and privileged, and I feel so much pleasure in welcoming and presenting before you the person who's the doyen of mass communication in Eastern India, the lady whose name spelled mass communication in India. She was there all over in various universities across the nation, on the governing council bodies, on the curriculum board of mass communication syllabi. She kind of started mass communication and gave it the Indian flavor that we all know of today. I'm talking about none other than Professor Tapati Basu, the former professor and head of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Calcutta. And now I'd like to request Ms. Sucharita Bardhan, who's our session chair, to kindly give us a brief introduction about Professor Tapati Basu.
Thank you very much, Ghazala. It is indeed my very personal honor and great privilege to be able to share this glimpse of Professor Dr. Tapati Basu. Madam does not know many of us, but Madam's popularity is known across the globe, and I am one of them. Professor Dr. Tapati Basu's fascinating and impressive career and achievement on the road that she journeyed in journalism and mass communication is definitely noteworthy. Professor Dr. Tapati Basu, a Premchand Roychand scholar, did her master's degree in journalism and mass communication from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Calcutta. which she was to head later in the department as head of the department. She joined the department as University Grants Commission Junior Research Scholar and visiting faculty in February 1986, went on to get appointed as the University Grants Commission Senior Research Scholar and visiting faculty in 1988, and later joined the department as a lecturer. Professor Dr. Tapati Basu did her Bachelor of Law from the Department of Law, University of Calcutta, and her work on media laws has been very well known. She was a Premchand Roychand scholar, as already we mentioned, and is the only one in journalism and mass communication in the University of Calcutta in its glorious 152 years history. Professor Basu was awarded with her PhD from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Calcutta, which was on newspaper advertising, and has been known as one of the most authentic research work done in the area. Her postdoctorate was from the Université de Paris, Sorbonne, Paris, and was on French media. She researched on science communication in French media in Maison des Sciences de l'Homme, Paris. She was awarded the D.Litt from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Berhampur University, on television and internet as entertainment media and its impact on society. All her research work are published in different peer-reviewed journals. Her books are authenticated and make for exceptional research pieces. Journalists and media professionals and renowned academicians across the world come to meet her in Calcutta. She has been a guide to many students for their PhD work, both internationally and nationally, and several among them have already been awarded PhD under her guidance. Her students are almost in every nook and corner of the global map. This meritorious professor, also the first lady professor in journalism and mass communication in West, North, Northeast, and Eastern India, is being conferred with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Many congratulations, madam, and we will all continue to draw inspiration from you. I am extremely humbled to be able to get this opportunity to introduce you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sucharita, for that a very wonderful and a very beautiful introduction that you gave about Tapati ma'am. Of course, none of it can even touch upon the glory that she has held in the field of mass communication. I would like to now invite the Secretary of GMEC, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary, to do the formal felicitation of Professor Tapati Basu with our session chair today, Ms. Sucharita Bardhan. So can we call for the presentation video, please? The technical team.
Thank you. Thank you. Before the video starts, it's a pleasure. I think the video has already started. Oh, no. So thank you for a very beautiful introduction, no doubt. From the time that I have been in media education with my first academic job in Symbiosis in 1998, I have been knowing about Tapati Di. And she has been adoring. And anyone in Calcutta who have studied media would have crossed ways with her, would have learned from her, would have interacted with her. In all the conferences, I remember in Lucknow, in Jaipur, and several other places I had met her. There will be this nice, well-dressed lady, with all smiles, very friendly. And she would be, talking more as a personal friend, like a Didi, like a friend, depending on the other person's age. And she would be interacting, and such a loving person she had been. The academic and other things, Sucharita has very nicely spoken, so I'm not speaking about that. I'm talking more about the person Tapati Di. There has been 2 generations, almost 1 to 2 generations of young people studying in Calcutta University and in Bengal in general, who have been taking her guidance and support and all that. Isn't it an honor for GMEC? We are not honoring her. We are being honored by being allowed to, or by having an opportunity to have you with us and honor you. I hope that you will find this organization and this effort of bringing 75 days long initiative and identifying 75 jewels like you in this country to give a salam, to give a salute. I hope this will go a long way in creating an impact in the minds of people who are studying, teaching, researching, and practicing media and communication. Thank you, Tapati. Let's have the little video that our team has prepared.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, Tapati, for your words, acceptance speech, and also on the topic of the day.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Namaskar. Good evening, my dear friend, Professor Ujjwal Kumar Chaudhary, and Secretary of GMC, and my dear brother also, and my dear friend, Professor KG Suresh, President, JMC, and respected Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah,
Thank you,
Dr. Sadia Jamil, Mrs. Sucharita Vardhan, and dearest Kajal Yasmin, and other respected honorary members and guest members. I am very happy and very grateful to Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary to say about all those things about me. I have seen him as my brother from a long time, and he has a major, very big experience. So many.
I think there's a connectivity issue. Yeah.
Ma'am, if you could just switch off your video, because ma'am, I think there is some network issue.
No, it's okay. Now I think she's back. Okay. Yes, over to you, Tapati. Continue.
Okay.
Yeah, continue.
Thank you. Then, and he is a very nice gentleman and very good human being also. And Gazia, I know you very long time. You are a very sweet girl. I'm very happy that you have invited me here, and I'm very happy to Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary and KG Suresh that they have been and you are all members are grateful to you for those things. And my subject is my journey of journalism. Yes, I have started my journalism in the very beginning. Because I have an honors in economics, and then I shifted to the MA in journalism. I have in it who was given donations at the interview, and then in the first time, a lady say
there is an audio problem at your end, audio or connectivity problem, Tapati. If you can switch off the video and continue speaking, let's try. Let's try. I think We have missed her. We'll have to go ahead with the program. Maybe we'll try to get her again, but let's go ahead with the program.
Okay, sir. So, in the meanwhile, I would like to call upon our paper presenter for the day, that is Miss Devika Mehta. Devika is from Amity University, Noida, and she's our paper presenter today.
Now I can say.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. We thought that we've lost you.
Okay. Thank you, Gazila.
Please continue. Please continue.
It was lost. Said. Okay. So you can see my PhD research work in Ganga in Calcutta University websites, where you research how the old newspapers were and now what are the recent newspapers are. And I have done my postdoctoral research from Sorbonne University, Paris in 1996, and delete from Berhampur University what you have said, the television and internet as entertainment media impact on society. So this is a very, and it will only people who can read and write and have the website connection only. This is the thing. And you have already said, I was the PhD committee convener of Calcutta University. I was the dean. I was the head of the department for a long time. And I was the former executive governing body member of Indian Institute of Mass Communication and the executive council member of and governing body member of IMC. I have started the journalism course in Ranchi University, Jharkhand, and then in Don Bosco University in Guwahati, and many more universities. You will be happy to listen that now the Northeast, the Nagaland University, the Silchar University, the Tejpur University, all the universities, the journalism courses has been started by me in 7th Plan Commission by the University Grants Commission. I was the one of the member of this commission, and we have started journalism courses in those universities. That time in Tejpur University, there was only a small building, and Silchar only is no building, nothing else, only a small room. And the Nagaland University, they have hired a room and they started their courses there. So these are the universities that started by me. Even the Ranchi Central Jharkhand University also, the journalism courses are started by me. And throughout India, I have started journalism courses in many universities so that our journalism may be very good and a subject and people can join there. And you will be also happy to know that journalism courses now, not only in India, throughout the international world, there are so many universities that are giving these courses. Earlier, people have said journalists are born, not made. But now today, you cannot say that, because now the journalist has to know many things, which is very needed for the to teach journalism, to learn journalism, to know journalism, etc. Well, so many people have done PhD under my guidance in Calcutta University, and more than 20, and from Don Bosco University, department of 22 years in Calcutta University, and journey of journalism. My journey of journalism is very interesting. I'm very happy to share with you about my journey of journalism. I met Ujjwal in the flight, first time. We are in the side by side and we gossip each other. And that was a very good experience. Then we become very good friends. And after that, we know each other very personally and very confidentially about our friendship and things. And academically also, we are very good at friendship between us. Then I was the ex-academic council member of Gujarat Central University, Ahmedabad, Central University of Himachal Pradesh, Dharamshala, Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology in Bhubaneswar, Kushabao Journalism Patrakarita University in Raipur, and Board of Studies member of so many universities. I can't tell you. Assam University, Nehu, Meghalaya, Mumbai University, Guwahati University, so many journalism courses also. And I was the executive council member of Government College of PG College, Autonomous Sambur, Nurul Islam University, Tamil Nadu, PG Government College, Trichy, advisor of Don Bosco University, Guwahati, member of Selection Committee of Indian Institute of Management of Shillong, pioneer honorary professor of Ranchi Central University, Jharkhand. So, I have published more than 1,000 articles in different English and Bengali newspapers, conducted several academic programs with Press Council of India, Indian Army, Women Commission, Human Rights Commission, All India Radio, Doordarshan, DABP, Indian Institute of Mass Communication, Film Division, BITS Pilani, Indian Science Museum, PRCI, FES, USIS, British Council, German Consulate, Bangladesh High Commission, Indiana University, United States, Southern Illinois University, New York University, and many other foreign universities external. German government invited me to know something about the research work, that why German people don't want children. So I was there as the invited guest of German government. They invited me as a government guest. They give the interpreter and the bodyguard and every facility, and to meet the German women and men why they don't want the children, because their children ratio was being less. Then I have found that as because they don't have their family system, and there was no, after the partition, after the revision of the East Germany and West Germany, the combination of West Germany and West Germany, there was the nursery about craze where was in the East Germany, the West Germany doesn't have. So video task.
It's okay. It's okay, Tapati. Continue. Please complete.
There is the time live as the women and with salary, so that they can bring their children out. So it was they have given 5 years with salary, the student, the salary with leave the student, the women, so that they can have children. So after 2 years, they again invited me, the German government, and to know what are the, but not very much, it is less, not like India or any other country. But that was a nice experience I have. And I was also academic achievement, like I was a member of NAC, and I have started in West Bengal. In 2000, Professor V.N.R. Pillai was the chairman of the NAC. He came, and Professor Lata Pillai, she was the member of the NAC. She came, and we have done whole West Bengal 3 seminars, one in Calcutta University, one in Vidyasagar University, and one in Bardhaman University, where all the principals of different colleges of West Bengal have joined, and to know how to prepare for the NAC. And we published a book also on the NAC. And I have visited so many universities as a NAC peer team member, as a chairman of peer team also. So, and colleges, I can't remember what, it is more than 150, and university. I have seen all these universities, and for the University Grants Commission, I was the member of giving fund to the 7th, 8th, 9th in plans. So I have visited Jaipur University, Rajasthan, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, so many universities, and in all the Northeast universities, and all the other universities in Trichy, and in Kashmir University, in Jammu University, and all those universities, many other universities for granting their courses. Tirupati University and everywhere, wherever I have gone, I have the only aim, only job is to start the journalism courses. This
Thank
is the,
you. Thank you, Tapati. It has been a fabulous journey that you have spoken. We will go ahead with the program, but thank you for starting so many journalism departments and degrees in all over the country. Thank you, and we hope that we'll have you on other occasions as well as we go ahead. Thank you very much. Ghazala, you may proceed, please.
thank you very much, Ujjwal. I am very much happy to meet you. I hope we'll meet again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor Tapati Basu, for a very inspirational journey. I hope each of us who are media educators, aspire to have as many academic pursuits and as many academic feats, if not the same, but at least we can try to follow your footsteps. And now, without much ado, I'd like to invite our speaker for today, a young dynamic scholar, Ms. Devika Mehta, who will be presenting a paper on artificial intelligence, literacy, and media studies with the Indian perspective. Devika, you have around 5 minutes, so you can please begin.
Thank you, Ghazala ma'am. Thank you. I'll just share my screen quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Basu ma'am, for such an amazing and inspiration words. So yes, I agree that journalists nowadays are actually made. They might be born, but they are actually made today. And
Devika, it would be nice if you can switch on your video.
I've actually switched on my video, but
okay, I'll just find out.
Anyway, you share the screen, maybe that's fine.
Okay, I'll do that. So, can you?
Yes. Continue.
Right, sir. So, yes, my name is Devika Mehta, and I'm a PhD scholar from Amity University, Noida. And I am researching on the subject of artificial intelligence and Indian news media. So, challenges and opportunities. And this paper is one among my first steps to identify the problem and to understand the awareness levels in different media circles. This paper's topic is artificial intelligence, literacy, and media studies, an Indian perspective. So the problem which I actually faced, I am basically a woman of service, you can say. I'm still new to academics. But when I was researching much on the AI strategies, news in the editorial processes of Indian newsrooms, I did not get much data online. It was all about all the foreign media houses, but not the Indian newsrooms. So for me, the problem is that there is a knowledge gap. Last few years in Indian newsrooms, we have seen the gradual shift of use of AI technology, which was there for the last 10, 20 years or so. But now AI strategies are being built, with which we can probably say that we are looking forward to human algorithm hybrid environment. However, not much literature is available about its usage in real-time scenario in India. So my aim is to narrate the evolution of AI strategies in Indian newsrooms and to understand the challenges and opportunities probably it presents for the society as a whole or a segment. The objective of this particular paper is to gain insight on AI awareness in media circles, majorly students, professionals, and academicians, to establish research baseline for my PhD research topic, artificial intelligence and Indian news media. My universe was majorly Noida Film City. I stay in Noida, so I tried to go through Noida Film City region majorly. My sampling technique was per person and random sampling. While the methodology which I used for majorly a questionnaire, which was a Google form, this is the link to it. And also I got involved in webinars and a few interviews for this paper. My paper and my topic is majorly based on the theory of diffusion of innovations, where we know that we are probably the early adopters, as Abhishek Prasad, who is heading, this was a webinar which was conducted by Meta Journalism Project India. And Mr. Abhishek Prasad, he's heading artificial intelligence, machine learning, and automation initiatives at HT Media. So he also referred to this diffusion of innovation by saying that probably we are the early adopters. We are in that phase of this particular theory, and soon early majority will be coming up, but there are few chasms to it. a few limitations probably people think in their mind that probably it's a threat, or maybe in India, the businesses might not be financially, they might be unviable. So there are certain chasms to it, but that will come into the later part. So the survey which I did, there were 13 questions, out of which I have placed majorly 8 here. The inferences drawn from this survey were the age, if I say 62.2% people were majorly under the age group of 18 to 24, and others followed the theme. Then mostly students and media professionals answered to my survey. Totally I got 143 responses, which is a little low, but I did it in the last 5 days because I'm also a working professional, so it became a little difficult for me to get more data on this. And then, have you heard of artificial intelligence? On this, majorly yes, many people, 93% said yes, while 76.8% felt that artificial intelligence is an opportunity more than a threat. And in my question, that in your view, has COVID-19 triggered the pace of artificial intelligence in India? 66.4% responded yes. Then 56.6% were they were aware of artificial intelligence usage in Indian newsrooms. Now here, after the survey, I actually felt that probably I should have added more details to this question. Like, for example, people do know that yes, for breaking news, for social, for spreading of information, and for fake news and all, artificial intelligence is beneficial. But I wanted actually to know the answer about the editorial part of the newsrooms. Are they aware about AI usage in Indian newsrooms in the editorial sections? How it is changing the workflow and all. So probably I'll be using that in the next survey or so. Then nearly 28.7% actually trust algorithms to take editorial decisions, which was a new answer to me because I was majorly expecting a no here. But it was like a maybe situation was also there, and only 35.7% answered no. So the inclination sided towards probably algorithms and taking editorial decisions. And the main question which was relevant to this whole paper was that, do you think artificial intelligence should be a part of college curriculums? Again, I should probably have detailed this question as to, when I talk about college curriculums, I'm talking about media college curriculums, and not just AI technology, but how AI technology can be converted into strategies by different newsrooms. So the hypothesis which I majorly drew from this paper was that in particular, news organizations are increasingly leveraging AI to change the way news is generated, produced, published, and shared. Jagran New Media is developing, the executive editor of Jagran New Media, Pratyush Ranjan, he has actually developed an AI strategy called Fatafat News, where he will be able to use a new AI tool, which is again developed by the Jagran New Media technicians for AI text summary purpose. But it is still in the early phases and not provided to the end users. So the hypothesis still exists there. And in the not too distant future, it is highly possible that intelligent machines will generate news articles. This is already happening by foreign media. There are many ways, specifically sports commentaries or business revenue stories are being generated in Associated Press. This is already happening. But in India, it is highly possible that soon this will be going to happen. The danger here is that machines might take over work without human supervision. Hence, it is important to develop new editorial skills to shape such systems. New professional profiles probably are the need of the hour for journalists, and integrating these type of skills into journalism education in Indian context is necessary. So it would require working on understanding what algorithms are and addressing aspects related to cultural, linguistic, engineering, and data quality. This is basically, there are two studies which I would like to specifically point out here. According to a 2017 study by the TO Center of Digital Journalism, AI technology should integrate editorial values into their design. At the end of 2020, the Council for Mass Media in Finland published a report recommending that the profession's self-regulatory body should not delay in taking up the issue of data processing or choices in computerized procedures and transparency of the audience. According to the report, if the media councils do not take the lead, others will. And whoever it is, whether national legislators, the EU, or platform companies, they might jeopardize the freedom of the press. So to conclude, as French economist Michael Waller writes, the good and the evil are in the intention, not in the tool. I probably would suggest that a curriculum based on probably the corporate workings of the Indian newsrooms and the ways AI strategies are being developed there should be included in the media curriculums. And that is probably that will give rise to the human algorithm hybrid. And when I say human algorithm hybrid, for example, we already see Facebook and Microsoft News and other tech giants using such type of technology for comment moderation and all. But for news articles, it would soon be a future, but let's see if it is the latest solution of an age-old tension between commercial imperatives and journalistic principles. So that is all from me, Ghazala.
Thank you so much,
Ghazala.
Yeah.
Ghazala, if
Yeah.
you permit me a quick,
Yeah.
because this is a very important point
Yes, sir.
that Devika has said, new editorial skills and professional profiles needed in the times of AI. So could you, does your search so far answer this even a bit? New editorial skills and professional profiles. Well, how do you like to elaborate, Devika?
So, for example, if I give my example, I've been a digital journalist for the last 13 years, and I was usually working on the websites, the .com, basically news websites. But last year, Microsoft News brought a new project where the stories were curated with the help of algorithms, and they also brought comment moderation. So they appointed those editors those people were employed who actually had the editorial skills, but they also could understand the technology pattern of the Xbox. So Xbox technical services were used to probably identify the abuse and racist comments in that in the comments which are made under Microsoft News articles. So as they were not looking for simple editors, they were looking for those people who can understand the technology, who can understand probably some technical references of the Xbox and all the IT patterns, which probably IT team does. So it was also expected from us. Our induction was held in that manner. And this is not just Microsoft News. Like the Jagran New Media example, which I gave, Fatafat News. So the editors there are not just plain editors who have knowledge of news or current affairs or who know how to edit or curate or copyright. They are those people who also have knowledge of computational skills, like some basic dot language, flowcharts, a little of Python, a little of those ideas. So
today being short on time,
Yes.
thank you. This is a very important point. While you write the full paper for publication here, as you
Yes.
know that a book is being published with the presentations. So the human algorithm hybrid and the new professional and technical skills. If you could elaborate that in your article, it would be really, really useful. And with
Sure,
examples
sir.
of the Dainik Jagran and the Microsoft and other project that you're saying, please elaborate that. That will be very useful. Thank you. Due to paucity of time, we can go to the next speaker. We are very eagerly waiting for the next two speakers, but very, very good presentation and very good topic. So if you could elaborate it very well later on. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Devika. Thank you. It was indeed a very valuable contribution to this webinar. You raised a very, very important point as to how AI can maneuver and completely change, the narrative, the present narrative of Indian media today, and kind of it conflicting or non-conflicting with the ethics of journalism is something which we should wait and watch for to see, this entire AI thing working in journalism in action in the future years. So thank you very much. With that, I move on to the next speaker of the day. And the next speaker is none other than Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah. We are honored and privileged to have the former deputy chief of the Army Staff and the former vice chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University amidst us. Professor Zamiruddin Shah is also the current pro-chancellor of University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya. He has a very intriguing and a very elaborate profile, and I like to share some snippets of the kind of eventful and exciting and insightful life that he has led. Well, he was born on the 15th of August, 1948. And Veteran General Shah, despite having spent more than 40 years in the army, has had a considerable experience also in the fields of diplomacy, judiciary, education, and also he's now donned the hat of the author. The general is a graduate of the Defense Services Staff College Higher Command course at Army War College and the National Defense College. He also holds a master degree in Defense Studies and Management from Madras University and an MPhil from Devi Ahilya University, Indore. In view of his past experiences, he has been conferred the honoris causa, the Doctor of Letters, on 11th November 2014, by the Integral University, Lucknow. And he's also been associated with training and education with various educational institutions. As far as his judicial experience is concerned, he was elevated to the Armed Force Tribunal Principal Bench, New Delhi, after his retirement in June 2009. And then he also went on to train at the National Defense Army and the Indian Military Academy. He was commissioned on 9th of June 1968 in the 185 Light Regiment in the Camel Pack. And he participated with the regiment in the 1971 War of the Liberation of Bangladesh at Longwala, that's in Jaisalmer. The general has also served on a lot of diplomatic assignments as defense attaché in Saudi Arabia, Southeast Asia, Africa, Europe, and the USA. And right now, we know him best for a very, very popular best-selling biography titled The Sarkari Musalman. That means the government stooge, though he would like to assert he's not a Sarkari Musalman. And the general, other than all his, acclaim to fame, is also a keen sportsman. He's a good rider and an avid golfer. And he's also a wildlife enthusiast and an angler, sometimes in troubled waters, as he says so. So, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah, for you, media and the demonization of minorities. Over to you, Lieutenant General Shah.
Greetings to all of you. Thank you, Ghazala, for the introduction. Professor Chaudhary, thank you for inviting me. I served 40 years in the army. So and in fact, as Ghazala said, I have worn 4 hats. That's a pretty large number of hats to wear. I chose the topic. The topic is media and the marginalized. Now, you all are aware that the minorities are at the bottom of the marginalized people in India. Nobody can deny that. They are even lower than the Dalits, who were earlier at the bottom of the list. Now it is the minorities, and especially the Muslim community. But in factors of demonization, they're right at top. You can read anything, you can switch on the TV. All that is happening is demonization of a particular community. The media, by continuous persuasive propaganda, eventually are successful in making it to enter into people's minds. This is the danger of propaganda. The media, especially, and I don't take out the international media, they are guilty of seeking profit over public safety or national good. All that they're interested in is profit, profit, profit. And unfortunately, they are pandering to majority sentiments and demonizing certain lot of people. We can't deny that. That's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, tolerating hate is one step away from participating in the hateful act, although it is nonetheless possible to avoid crossing the line. Now, I'll cover the following. First, I'll cover social media, the most persuasive of media. Look at the example of Facebook, now renamed Meta for very good reasons, founded by Mark Zuckerberg. A whistleblower from Facebook, Frances Haugen, revealed how partial Facebook can be. The company was losing in on young viewers. So they decided that the next catchment area is South Asia. And they did not check the spike of anti-Muslim posts during a certain period. There was a huge spike of posts against minorities, and Facebook really should be held accountable, as they are. They are being questioned now in America. They should have checked the spike in hateful posts. That should have been the job of the media. Next is Twitter, founded by Jack Dorsey. It was basically initially an SMS tool to send SMS messages. But it too adopted a partisan attitude in blocking certain accounts which they felt would not be appreciated or which would not yield the desired money to them. The most dangerous is WhatsApp. It is the most toxic and filled with hate. I know it because I'm a member of several social groups on WhatsApp, and I've had to withdraw myself because of the toxicity of certain posts. I mean, they are flush with hate-filled posts. And why? Because the people forwarding these posts are taking refuge in the anonymity of WhatsApp. They don't have the guts to write things. They don't have the guts to speak openly. They don't have the guts to have things published. So the anonymity of WhatsApp is made use of by them to circulate unwanted posts. So this is as far as the social media is concerned. What about the electronic media? They are only interested in getting top ratings, TPR. That's all that matters. The element of truth, which should be the responsibility of the electronic media, is given no importance at all. And you all have seen what TV debates on the television are. I think it's a waste of time listening to the rubbish. It is more shouting matches than giving knowledge, giving information. The electronic media has specialized in inviting ill-informed stereotypes of a particular community. These stereotypes make a laughing stock of themselves. And TV programs, instead of giving and analyzing good, fruitful news which will benefit humanity, highlight only peripheral issues to whip up mass sentiments. That is the danger. We all are aware of what they've been propagating, what they've been highlighting, totally, unwanted stuff. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't watch these TV debates. They're a waste of time. Next, I'll come to Bollywood. It is, the Indian cinema is a great opinion builder. What you see in movies is what sinks into a viewer's mind. In the old days, Bollywood always depicted the vamps, their names were Mary or Lucy, and the bootlegger was always John or Francis or something like that. So the viewing public in India always linked the Christian community, unfortunate, this is very, very unfortunate, to be bootleggers and vamps and such things. You all are aware that the recent movies have got a whole lot of Abduls and Qadirs and such things. All of them are terrorists or kidnappers and such things. So this is projecting a wrong image of a particular community. Historical characters, historical movies. Some historical characters are depicted as bloodthirsty savages. That's all that they're given. And of course, what happens if the media tries to project something else? For example, Prakash Jha. Well, the sets got invaded by mobs who didn't allow the movie to be screened. So this is the opposite of what the public is facing as far as Bollywood is concerned. I think the name, the film industry doesn't like the name Bollywood, but there it is. It's a caricature of Hollywood. The most important and most lasting of media is the print media. It is enduring. You might see a program, you might see a movie may last 15, 20 years. But a book survives for centuries. I mean, after all, aren't we still reading Shakespeare? Several centuries after his books were written. So the print media, that means the books, is the most enduring because it survives for generations, hundreds of years. Unfortunately, recent books denigrating a particular religion have been written by people who are born in that religion. I will not name, but you know who is writing this trash. You've heard of satanic verses. It was written by somebody who was a born Muslim because he wanted to cash in on the Islamophobia which is all over the world. It is essential that we expose this alarming rise of demonization of the minorities. As I said, the biggest quote, the most important quote, which I like to repeat, is in the end, we will remember the silence of our friends. So it is the responsibility of the Indian public to put an end to this onslaught. I would mention it as an onslaught of the media. India is a great country. India has, it's a mixture of blends, religions. India has been hospitable to any person fleeing persecution. That is the beauty of our great country. And we have got to keep it that way. We have got to ensure that everybody gets a fair deal, which I experienced it right through my life. I always got a fair deal. Nobody mentioned religion or anything. In the army, it's not mentioned. We don't bother what religion anybody is. But, ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very disturbed at what is happening with the media. I have mentioned all the types of media. I have mentioned where the fault lies. But I am very, very positive that this is only a passing phase. I always say, this too shall pass. This phase of demonizing the minorities will end. India is too large, too great, too absorbing. And I am very, very confident that this phase will soon pass. And distant education is a very, very important facet. Earlier, a teacher could teach 40 or 50, or at worst, even 100 students. Now, one teacher can teach hundreds, thousands of students all over the world at a particular time. This is the importance. This is where we've got to realize that the tools of modern education, and I always say distant education, when I was at Aligarh Muslim University, I gave a lot of importance to distant education. It is a great tool, it is an important tool, and we must harness it for spreading the light of education across our great country. That's all I had to say. Thank you very much for inviting me, Professor Chaudhary and Yasmin. God bless you all. And may you read, may you get enlightenment from education. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Shah, for that very, very erudite deliberation. I mean, this is one area which is also my area of research, minority representations in media, and time and again, you know, the kind of stereotypes that have been built around, not just the Muslim minority, but like you rightly pointed out, you know, the Christian minority or even the Sikh minority. That is something which we need to ponder upon, and especially, you know, in light of the current situation when the National Broadcast and Digital Standards Authority has pulled up quite a few very, very prominent journalists from some very prominent national channels. It goes on to speak volume as to the denigration that has happened in terms of ethics in mainstream media and how they need to pull themselves up. So maybe this academic discourse, this kind of, you know, academic deliberations can create documentation which kind of, you know, guides, which becomes a guiding light for them as to what is the true role of a journalist. So thank you very much. Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah was the chief guest of the evening, and we were very honored to listen to your valuable thoughts, sir. And now we come to the last speaker of the day, which is Ma'am Sucharita Bardhan. Well, Sucharita Bardhan is the communications specialist, advocacy and partnerships in the West Bengal chapter of UNICEF. She has some immense experience in social development over a period of over 26 years. And some of her key experiences have been advocacy and strategic communication, media planning, and media qualitative research and documentation. She has gone on to research and design and lead some state and national level campaigns on advocacy and local level activations in some very critical and key social sector issues, not just in West Bengal, but in New Delhi, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, Assam, and Rajasthan. Thank you for your very, very patient listening, Sucharita. You were also the chair of the day, and now we are all very eager to listen to a very, very interesting topic that she has in store for us: children's stories reported in media, supporting rights and influencing policymakers. Over to you, Sucharita Vardhan.
Thank you very much. I'd like to be able to share my screen. Please let me know once you can see it.
Yes, visible.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So once again, I'd like to thank GEMEC and very particularly Professor K.G. Suresh and Professor Ujjal Kumar Chaudhary, both of whom I've known for quite some time now. And of course, my dear friend and colleague, Ghazala Yasmin. We see a lot of new hopes in the kind of work that we want to do together. And also to all the very august panel of speakers. I'd like to start.
Can you make the screen full? It will be easier to read.
I did. Did it not come?
No,
did it?
No, yes, now it's fine.
Okay. So this is about development journalism. And while we're talking about media and the marginalized, I specifically chose a vulnerable community, a social group, which comprises children. And of course, children comprise a great part of the population of India. Even if you're looking at disaggregated data across the states, both children and young people, they make for more than 60% of the population. I am looking both at places of urban centers as well as hard to reach communities. I'm looking at minority groups. I'm looking at specially abled children. So I'm looking at the entire gamut of children, because children, despite having privileges and not having privileges, also are subjected to various kinds and acts of violence. And the way we have been reporting on them is the journey that actually I had taken to try and see how to walk along their journey and try and look at reporting in a different format. So I'd like to start in 2012. I was in Assam. And we've been hearing every time, as my earlier speaker already said, that news in print remains with you. It is something that that resonates even after you have read the editorials, or you've seen the television, or even received WhatsApp messages. And all the names are changed for sake of confidentiality. And this was not a new instance. But it was an instance again. And another child, this time a girl child, another child who was below 18 years was violated. She was sexually assaulted by a person who was known to her. She was in pain and trauma and all of that we can imagine. And various agencies did not help to remain or keep her identity confidential, and her name was out. She was in more trauma. And of course, we were having media trying to, come up with maybe breaking news, or come up with a little bit of scoop, come up with some insights. And of course, she was thrust with more questions, and more intriguing responses were asked from her. And in this way, children, and that child too, got violated twice. And that is where I started thinking that something has to be done here. It's not always that media is not being able to understand. Perhaps there is an issue somewhere. Maybe we need to understand and find out what is that back room in the media. How is it creating an enabling space for that reporter who has to probably, capture that news, because it's going to get viral very soon, and she or he has to file the report. These kinds of violences, where the victim or the survivor is often made to question what happened, why it happened, and that gets featured, which is not the case for who the perpetrator was, or who Or what failed her or him? What was the system? Where was the policy? Where was the law? If it was there, could it not be enforced? If there were protection or safety nets, what happened? And what happens to people whom we consider as our own and we fail children? So I started interacting with media one-on-one. I went to media houses because it was my new assignment duty station in Assam. I was trying to get oriented with them, acquainted with the landscape there of the various challenges that were already there in the state. And I began to reason with them. What was it that was playing in their minds when they started reporting on these issues? We had some fantastic contributions from various media colleagues. I must acknowledge all of them today, because had it not been them, had it not been their insight, their sharing, their inputs, their critical thinking, probably we wouldn't have been able to undertake this journey. So my journey started with Tejpur University, where we brought them together, a cohort of media, very senior people. And we tried to show them how children had developed their own version of the ethical guidelines for reporting on children, which is a document which can be found out, which is part of the UN, which is now already subscribed by the POCSO Act, the Prevention of Sexual Offences Against Children, which was already there by the Press Council guidelines, from the Press Council guidelines. And we started looking at how children were interpreting and what is it that they were demanding. And so we started what basically we began as the first rudimentary lessons or tenets of what we called development journalism and our journey on that. And we were looking at both trying to see how to create a pool of potential media journalists who were going to be media journalists, prospective ones. So therefore we looked at universities, but we were also looking at practicing media professionals, as that was extremely important. We needed to also capture the now moment. We realized very soon that it needed more engagement. The issue with reporting as it began, and I heard Madam Tapati Basu, who's an institution by herself. For many of us, we look upon her. There is a situation where media houses increasingly are not able to groom their in-house media professionals, and many times organizations and agencies like UNICEF have been asked and requested to be able to facilitate that kind of training. So that training in basic media writing and basic journalistic skills, nothing related to something specific. But of course, there was something more that we had to offer. We had to offer the entire span of social development and how issues could be interpreted and how definitely they could be written. We had we deliberated with both print and electronic, and we realized that electronic will be slightly more challenging to begin with, as I was hearing the earlier speaker. And I remember a very senior professional in Assam telling us, you help us to crack our TRPs, we'll help you to do your stories. So then we realize it's not about our stories. It's about everybody's stories. It's about your family, my family, that child's family. It's about the farmer. It is about water. It is about maybe poverty alleviation. It is about the food that the child has. It is also about violence, but it is also about these very important social development indicators. By that time, we had already realized that only working with media and with university will not alone work. So we had to reach out to administrators. And in the University of Tejpur, which even Madam spoke about, what a fantastic collaboration of professors we had. And we had a week-long deliberation on development communication, and then naturally it grew out into development journalism, and then also into curriculum for C4D later on. And the development journalism got integrated into the curriculum after it went to the academic council. But somewhere I was still feeling that we'd not done enough. We had experimented with, students through workshop modes. We had given them cameras to capture stories from children by looking at the entire story from the children's lenses. And that opened up entire vistas. But still somewhere, we were thinking that we had not reached the mark yet. And then happened the University of Rajasthan, which was basically a kind of a huge milestone in this entire development journalism journey. And so we kind of started with understanding whether development journalism is required anymore, whether there is any relevance of it. And through the university, we were in touch with 22 universities, and professors, head of the departments, some vice chancellors were all part of our deliberations, which continued for more than 3 or 4 years. And many of the colleagues that I see here today, which I mentioned already, were part of that journey. And when we started doing that, we realized that everybody had the same thing to say. We need to be able to teach our children, our media students, how to look at covering, the development journalism or journalism for the social development piece, because that is not always interesting. That's not always glamorous. It's not to do with crime. It's not politics. It's not sports. It's not even page 3. And that requires a little bit of more information. It requires more of reading. It requires more of analysis. It needs to, keep abreast of some of the national findings to be able to, understand that, unpack that. And also reporting on children of this kind or on farmers is a very responsible business. And then happened the All India Media Conference, and many of you are also aware of the conference. We started integrating these issues in these platforms so that these begin to there's a buzz around these issues. We're able to create a little more attention towards these issues. And then we started looking at the curriculum once again. We had divided it into 3 areas. We looked at development journalism for postgraduate students. We looked at the faculty development program, because we realized very often this entire thing was, how are you even going to start these courses? You don't have faculties ready. And so we realized that, yes, that was a very big issue. And so we looked at the faculty development course, and also a learning course for journalists, just so that they can kind of, look back and see what are some of the additional skills that they can look at. And I'm very happy to hear the Pro VC mentioning about distance education, because we realized from the journalists who are not always able to commit time to, we portion maybe 2 half days together and another additional half day for these sessions that we had with them. But we also realized that we have to make a combination of on-site and off-site and see how we can also do hands-on training and skills building, but also give them the opportunity for looking at distance mode for a certain area. Many of the professors in the panel of the GMEC also are aware of how we try to look at bringing in data journalism, unpacking that data journalism, looking at going and conducting and facilitating those visits to various places, say maybe schools or Anganwadi centers, and trying to catch or file their stories, pick up the interesting stories based on also the data that they had in mind, and together do a very strong and appealing story, one for the print, but also try and see how they can translate that story into other platforms, because every platform of social media has a different language. And if at that time we were in Rajasthan, if maybe a district journalist from Churu or Dungarpur was able to see the potentiality of how his story had become so appealing, which actually did, that it influenced policy. It also was picked up by Guardian. Then obviously storytelling with evidence and data journalism has a big ticket for journalists, even when you're reporting on latrines, or you're reporting on water, or you're reporting on nutrition or undernutrition. So that's how we began, and we picked up from there. And of course, we tried to also pre-test all of them, because that was a very big learning for us of how to actually facilitate the sessions. And my personal endeavor has always been that if I am a college lecturer in any college, I should be able to orient myself, and I should be able to facilitate that learning for children who are going to be our prospective media professionals, because this is a certain course which is not about only reading and getting marks in academics, it's about practicing it. And from the University of Rajasthan Center for Mass Communication, along with another organization, I have to acknowledge the Lok Samvad Sansthan and Mr. Kalyan Kothari, who were instrumental in facilitating what we called a huge agenda on taking these forward. And then again, we realized that this is fine, but we need to be able to demonstrate what is it that we're saying in terms of making stories powerful, appealing, data, evidence-based, etc. So we looked at media fellowships, and we had a few fellows who actually began to throw more light on some of the issues that we were collectively thinking of doing research on. And based on that research, they were going to write their articles, which had to be published. And only those published articles, if they were published, then they would be recognized as part of the fellowship. And then there was this interesting question that one of my friends, my now friend, then colleague, had mentioned, that you're talking about child marriage. How are these annulled if they're child marriage? Because they're not registered. So these are very simple questions, but it begins to question the entire fabric, the system, the structure. How are we looking at positioning ourselves when we're trying to talk about ending child marriage? And many of you know that both in Rajasthan and now also in West Bengal, child marriage incidences are rising, of course, for very different reasons, because we have a whole lot of social norm questions very differently placed in Rajasthan and West Bengal. But the issue is there. And therefore, with that issue stems other issues which are connected with low birth weight children because of early pregnancies, or we realize there are teenage pregnancies, and that's proxy indicator, etc., etc. And that opened up another vista, that not looking at only city-bred journalists, but we need to reach out to district journalists, and who basically did not really think that, you know, their reporting could actually be picked up by their national houses, and theirs could be actually, the editor would be calling them and congratulating them. But so we started the mentoring process. The mentoring was essentially done by more senior media people who had maybe 2 or 3 mentees. And many of you may be knowing that the mentoring program globally has also picked up, something that we didn't know when we started. In fact, the first initiative we failed because we were trying to see how to do the mentor-mentee. But then the next initiative was so super successful that this guy who was there from, I think it was Churu, I can't remember, or Gangaram, I cannot remember, but he was working on water. And he was completely astonished when, after his article was published, he got a call from the, they call them district collectors, and wanted to know exactly what the report said. And he made amends immediately. And there was this entire issue about, many of you know that there are water scarce districts, and ODF, or open defecation free, cannot happen without access to water. So this entire storytelling became so interesting that journalists began to see that zing thing, because earlier on they didn't really realize that this is also possible. And so we realized with that we were able to at least make a beginning about looking at not only children being reported against violence, but also about other issues. And through that, we also brought in that entire concept of children's rights, because if a child is being violated, then there is a way in which that violence has to be reported. Of course, it has to be reported, but what is it that we can do to not further traumatize the child, or not further commit another act of violence? But at the same time, we bring in issues, we bring in the entire structure, including policies and the framework and the legal discourses, to see where and how the child can benefit, and why perpetuators are continuing to do so, and where are the gaps. Before I conclude, I must say that these entire curriculum that we developed with due regards to so many professors, so many practitioners across India, so many administrators, including vice chancellors and broadcast association, they're countless. I am totally so grateful to all of them. But I'm also grateful that ever since I landed in Kolkata, which has been my home for so many years, but I was outside the state for more than 12 years, and many dynamics, they keep changing. But I was welcomed back into the fold with the same enthusiasm that I had seen when I was leaving. And there were some of them were known to me, but there were a lot of other friends that I had already picked up and made met, and we continued to have the relationship. We started with the press club, and Ghazala knows that there are efforts to bring in more universities. As I said, I want somebody in the Canning College, a lecturer, to be able to understand development journalism in the same resonance that many of us are beginning to be able to do. We brought in a 13-part media series to question some of the areas that we wanted to look at, to bring in minds to think and reflect about it. And many of them were connected with children. We are hoping that through time, we should be able to, try and reach out to universities. This is our initiation. And I'd be very grateful if some of the stalwarts like Professor Tapati Bose can also guide us in the entire initiative. We have many of them like Snehashi Shur, who's the president of the press club. We have Uma Shankar Pandey, who's not here today, but also part of this council. We have, of course, Ujjal Chaudhary, with whom I have also had some conversations, and KG Suresh continues to be an inspirator to many of us. Before I say thank you, I have this one important thing to, leave in all your minds, that reporting is important. For us, reporting is more important when it has to do with violence, and making that reporting more credible with facts, but also with the knowledge to know how to do that storytelling, how not to further perpetuate violence, but to bring out certain critical questions where we can, pose people who are in the echelons of power and decision makers to actually reflect on that news, which, according to my earlier speaker, it remains with us. And that is something very important. Thank you.
Fabulous, indeed fabulous. Thank you, ma'am. Ghazala, if you allow me one sentence, I would like to
sir,
put
sure.
before. Sucharita ma'am has always been an action-oriented person. I mean, even the presentation is actually a story of an action taken across several years. So it would be great to have a workshop, why one, rather a series, on multimedia storytelling on issues of children and women. It's not about journalism alone. It's also about the way the advertising is done, way short stories are being created. Storytelling is of multiple dimensions. So it would be great to have a series of workshops on multimedia storytelling on issues of children and women. We can take it up at national level, or we can take it up at Eastern India level, whatever is required. For multimedia production houses, news houses, media and media learners, institutions also. Leading to participant must ensure a series of stories published online, offline, or on air. It must be published, and there should be a contest and an award maybe. So this sort of a thing, and GMAC would be greatly happy. I mean, at this point of time, the president and the vice presidents are not here, and I'm only there at this moment on this show. So on behalf of GMAC, would be really very happy to organize this. And this need not be, and this can be in multi-location, this should be physical, or this can be blended. Certain things could be online, and certain things should be physical. So this is something that, thank you, ma'am. Please look forward to it. We will look forward to it. If required, we'll give a proper written proposal with the project objectives and the project outcomes at the end of the day. Over to you, the moderator of the day.
Thank you so much, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary. And indeed, this very erudite deliberations and this collective effort of each of our speakers to add on to this very, very diverse perspective of, talking about, bringing the discourse, bringing the narrative back to the marginalized, because that is where the narrative should belong. Some very, very interesting takeaways today, and with the hope that we can take it to a even larger platform, this prospect of trying to report more inclusively, more artistically, more creatively, stories about women and children and other marginalized sections. With that, we come to the close of this session on the media and marginalized under the aegis of Global Media Education Council. I'm indeed very, very thankful, and I extend my sincerest thanks for the patient listening, not just the erudite deliberations, but the patient listening of all our esteemed panelists who have taken out such valuable time, a couple of hours from their busy lives, to be able to listen to each other and share each other's stories. In this era where we are completely fatigued, with on-screen time, I think this is really very valuable, and this is very appreciated by the council. Thank you so much, Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah. I'm very privileged and honored and thankful to Professor Tapati Basu also, despite her adverse health situation. Also, she managed to take out time and stay with us throughout the show, and also enlighten us and inspired us in this journey of journalism, as she calls it. I'm very thankful to Dr. Sadia Jamil. Sadia had to leave because she's in Dubai and she had some other engagement, but she stayed till, she's just a couple of listeners, speakers whom she didn't listen to, but she has very enthusiastic to listen to them on YouTube. She's asked for the video link. I'm also thankful to Ms. Sucharita Bardhan for very efficiently chairing this session and doing half of my job, making it easier for it. I have a special kind of a bond and a camaraderie with her, because the issues that she's been talking about, that she's vociferous about, is very close to my heart too. A development journalism program that she organized at the University of Rajasthan. I was a participant in that, and I spent some beautiful 2 weeks, delving upon data journalism and other things. So thank you, Sucharita. I'm also very thankful to Devika Mehta, the paper presenter of the day, for putting up a very insightful and a very new and a challenging issue on artificial intelligence and how it can be incorporated in media studies. And this show would indeed not have been possible without Manushri and Utkarsh, the real backbone, the technical support that we had in this webinar. Thank you so much, the two of you. They are not there on screen, but they are the one who have actually kind of, taken it along. I'm also very thankful to all other Global Media Education Council members who have joined us today, who have joined us on YouTube, and heartfelt thanks to all friends, family members, colleagues, and my dear students who kind of joined in and spent their 2 hours. I'm sure they have some wonderful takeaways, some insightful perspectives on what is the way forward of Indian journalism. Thank you so much. And last but not the least, a very, very heartfelt thank you to my professor. He's my mentor. He's taught me. I know him from my graduation days, and he's been a constant, source of inspiration, encouragement for me. Thank you so much, UKC sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You have done the moderation very well, and you have summarized it also very well. And I believe that all the summary of all the speeches, as you know, would be published. So Ghazala, your job is not over. You have to chase every speaker to get a 1,000-word summary of their talks for the book that we intend to come out at the end.